What is up, pre-meds? Got 118 more. Well, 100 new ones, but we out here grinding away. Oh, I'm so tired. Just psych. It's just such a boring, topic in MCAT. It's a really boring topic. That's why I really hate it, psych. But the unfortunate thing is that these are all 1 day cards, so tomorrow I have to do all 363 cards again. But I have them in my memory now, so it might be a little bit easier, but we'll see. I really gotta make use of the easy and the hard ones to really balance it out, because I do have to do BB and CP tomorrow also. And I also do use PS stuff. But anyways, I'm trying to get this done as soon as possible. Let me just pull up some music real quick. Let's play this track here. Play this one. Alright, here we go. Phototropic vision occurs at high light levels. Mesotropic vision occurs at dawn dusk and involves frost and cone. Scototropic vision occurs at very low light. Cool. What was the physiological component? Cognitive behavioral. Okay, so physiological component includes raising of body temperature, increase redness of the face, might be shaking from surprise birthday party. Cognitive is depending on each person, how you interpret the surprise birthday party. Some people like surprise birthday parties, some people don't. An emotional experience is, or that's the emotional, behavioral might be like you're doing facial expressions or body expressions. The limbic system is a set of structures that regulate the emotions in the brain. Substructure in the brain that regulates emotion. Contains the hippohat, which is the hippocampus, hypothalamus, hippocampus, hypothalamus, amygdala, and the thalamus. Learned helplessness is you learn knowing that you have had control ripped out of your hand, that you don't have control. You learn from having control ripped out of your hand that you don't have control, which means you can't develop coping mechanisms. Mean focused coping is finding a positive experience or finding meaning from a stressful situation in order to cope with it. Long-term potentiation describes the fact that our brains actually strengthen signals and strength between neural connections rather than forming new neurons for learning new memories. Working memory, 7 plus or minus 2 digits, which is why numbers are 9 digits long, so 7 digits long. Spindles are protein receptors located in our muscles, and they detect stretching, which allows us to give a sense of how stretched and relaxed each and every muscle of our body is. Dissociation is ignoring the stressful situation. Sensitization is trying to find information on how to avoid the stressful situation in the first place. Safety behavior is relying on something to handle the stressful situation. Anxious avoidance is avoiding the stressful situation at all costs, and escape is running away from the problem. Forgetting about the stress. Researching to prevent the stress from happening in the first place. When you rely on something to cope with the stress, avoiding stress at all costs, running away. Alzheimer's disease is when the neurons are dying off, which causes a shrinking of the cerebral cortex and causing amyloid plaque buildups in the brain. Just also law of closure states that our mind fills in missing gaps. For example, the Panda Express symbol. 4 factors that influence the absolute expectations, experience, alertness, and motivation. Vestibular system is located in the inner ear and used for positioning, head positioning, and spatial orientation. Sclera is the white of the eye, and it either absorbs or reflects all lights. I need to figure that out. 2 types of heuristics are mean and analysis, where you're breaking larger problems into small problems, and working backwards, which is typically used in mazes and proofs. Visual sensation occurs when light gets converted into electrical impulses that are detected in the brain. Or neural impulses, yeah. Narcolepsy is you keep falling asleep, can't help themselves falling asleep, and getting into fits of random REM sleep. Learning reduces processing time. Convergence, things are far away, eyes are contracted. Things closer to your eyes are constricted. Ooh, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah, contract. Relax and contract. Use those words. Okay. Ooh, empty card. Dissociation theory of hypnosis. The dissociation theory of hypnosis states that hypnosis is a special form of divided attention. A special case of divided attention. And social influence theory, people do what's expected of them. Like an actor getting caught in a role or government telling you you're a lizard and you believing you're a lizard. Two strategies and what do they say? Conservative strategy, always say no unless 100% signal is correct. Always say yes even if you get lit with false alarms. Conservative strategies, always say no unless you're 100% sure signal is correct. Retrograde memory and anterograde memory. Past memory. Ability to remember experiences before brain injury. Anterograde memory refers to the ability to form long-term memories after a brain injury. Okay. What are calcium crystals used in oolitic organs? They are attached to hair cells. If we get up from lying down to standing up, they will move and pull on hair cells to trigger ATP signals to us that we're getting up. Okay, so they're attached to hair cells. And when we get up from laying down to standing up, they will move and pull on hair cells to trigger action potentials. The eyes have more rods. Empty card again. The brain relies on cochlea to differentiate between two different sounds at different frequencies. Tonal mapping. Each taste depends on the specific receptor that is localized on the tongue. For most people, language is in the left hemisphere. How do opiates and opioids work? They reduce central nervous systems. They act on body They act on body receptors for endorphins by mimicking endorphins. They act on body receptor sites for endorphins by mimicking endorphins. What is a tip link? Spiral-like structure as a tip of the kinocilium, which is a bundle of hair cells. A spiral-like structure that it links the tip of the kinocilium, which is a bundle of hair cells. Choroid. Pigmented black network of blood vessels that nourishes the retina, and it's black, covered because it reflects all light. Pigmented black network of blood vessels that nourishes the retina. Hit. Hit means there's a signal and you say yes. False alarm, no signal, you say yes. Correct rejection, no signal, you say no. Miss, there's a signal, you say no. Where are all the cones centered? The fovea, which is in the retina. They're inversely related. That's pretty good. Caffeine. Caffeine will act on adenosine receptors and inhibit CMP levels. Inhibits the enzyme that breaks on CAMP and adenosine receptors. What is subliminal stimuli? Stimuli below the absolute threshold. Spearman theories of intelligence states that we just have one general intelligence, which is a G factor. What is agraphia and anomia? Inability to write. Anomia is the inability to name things. What is steric theory of olfaction, known as shape theory? Specific shapes of molecules bind to specific shapes of receptors on the olfactory epithelium. What molecules fit into receptors like lock and key? What is the method of loci? Memorization technique. You can imagine walking through a familiar place, and each place will have a visual sound like a memory palace. What is fluid intelligence? How quickly you're able to think on your feet. Crystallized intelligence is your factual knowledge. Crystallized intelligence is accumulated knowledge over time. What is a Tandem-Befriend response? A better response to stress is the formation of a support system. Oxytocin is used for peer bonding with friends. Uses oxytocin, which is a better response to stress in the formation of the support system. Which uses oxytocin. Implicit memory are non-declarative memory. These are memories that you can't actually describe, like procedural memory. Think. Non-declarative form unconsciously involve things you may not be able to articulate. What are things when you're looking at an object? Color, form, and motion. What is the purpose of endolimbs? Semicircular canal in the inner is filled with fluid called endolin. The movement and allows to detect which. And it's a fluid that's inside the semicircular canal in the inner ear, and the movement endolymph allows us to detect which direction our head is moving and the strength of rotation. So endolymph, the fluid inside the semicircular canal, which is in the inner ear, and allows us to detect which direction our head is in and movement. Empty card again. Alertness, awaken code. Alertness is awake. No, sleep, not aware, just before self-induced. Oh, alertness. So daydreaming and drowsiness are self-induced. What is contextual effect? The context in which stimuli is presented contributes to how people perceive those stimuli. We can perceive stuff based on the context we're given the stimuli. What are methods of problem? Heuristics, trial and error, algorithm, and heuristic, which is a shortcut to eliminate unlikely situations. Trial and error, algorithm, and heuristics. 0 to 2 years is the children's sensory motor stage. Gather objects. Children gather information through the world through 5 senses, and they associate with use object permanence, so object exists even if they can't see them. That's more stage. Stronger neural links equals shorter processing time. Weak link states that language sort of determines thoughts. Makes it easier for us to think a certain way based on how do we detox an addict for opioids? Opioids acts as natural receptor sites for endorphins to reduce pain and give euphoria. We can use methadone, which activates opioids back more slowly to dampen the high dose, which reduce drug craving. So we use methadone, which activates opioid receptors, but it acts a lot more slowly to reduce the craving and dampen the high. But those with a growth mindset accomplish more in their careers. What is sensory adaptation? Change over time of a receptor to a stimulus. Is it pushed down in hand? Receptor is cause pressure. Which receptor uses thermoreceptors? Oh, TRPV1 receptors, which is also sensitive to pain. Cool. Vibrational theory of olfaction. Vibrational frequencies of a molecule gives a molecule its specific odor profile. What is the cocktail party effect? This is something with the naming, I remember. Ability to concentrate on one's voice among the crowd. Someone calls your name. This is an endogenous cue because you need to internally recognize the meaning of your name to draw attention. Spotlight model of attention. We are aware of something on an unconscious level due to priming. For example, we are primed to our name. Okay. We are aware of things on an unconscious level. Ciliary body. Secretes aqueous humor. The modified semantic network. Every individual semantic network develops based on experiences and knowledge. What is the modified semantic network? Every individual semantic develops. Okay, so every individual has a unique semantic network that is developed based on experience and knowledge. Cognitive economy. Our brain's efficient. What is availability? Heuristics. Using examples that come to mind to make a decision. For example, you hear lots of sharks on the news, so you think shark attacks are more common. Using examples that come to mind to make a decision. Somatosensory homunculus is, I remember that, it's kind of like a map of your body to your brain. Different areas of the body have signals that go to different parts. So a map of your brain, different areas of the body have signals that go to different part of the brain. Lewis Terman, no idea. Stanford psychologist that modified Binet's intelligence test designed for teenagers and adults and called it the Stanford Binet intelligence test. Lewis Terman was the Stanford psychologist that modified Binet's intelligence test to design for teenagers and adults and called it the Stanford Binet intelligence test. or subclinically, can create false memories and pain control. Morphology is the structure of words. Things that are far away, eyes are more relaxed. Things that are close to us, eyes are more contracted. Executive attention. Individuals' capacity to choose what they want to pay attention to and what they ignore. Controlled by dopamine from the VTA. Individuals' capacity to choose what they want to pay attention to and what they ignore. Controlled by dopamine from the VTA. Law of common fate. Elements that are moving together in the same direction are grouped together. Transduction of visual sensory information. Energy is transformed to light, energy is converted to electrical into when energy is transformed, so transduction of visual sensory information. This is when energy is transformed into another energy. For example, light is converted to electrical and polarizing codes. Transduction of visual and sensory information. Conservative strategy says that you always say no unless you're 100% sure the signal is present, and the liberal strategy is to always say yes, even if it raises false alarms. Dissociation is forgetting the stressful situation. Sensitization is doing research to prevent the stressful situation from happening in the first place. Safety behavior is relying on an object to cope with a stressful situation. Anxious avoidance is avoiding a stressful situation at all costs. And escape is running away from a stressful situation. What is the retrograde and immature? So retrograde memory is the ability to recall old info after a brain injury or before a brain injury. And anterograde memory is the ability to form new memories after brain injury. Calcium crystals are on the tips of hair cells in the oleic organs, so semicircular canals, and they pull on hair cells, which tells you head positioning. Oh, they are attached to hair cells. If we get up from lying down to standing up, they will move and pull on our hair cells. The trigger action, but so we're getting up. The eyes have more rods and cones. Each taste depends on where it binds to the specific taste receptors on the tongue. For most people, language is in the left hemisphere. For left-handed and right-handed people, opiates and opioids mimic endorphins and bind to endorphin receptors. What is a tip link? Tip links are found that link kinocilium together. Structures that link the tips of kinocilium, which are a bundle of hair cells. Choroid's a network of black pigmented blood vessels that nourishes the retina. All cones are centered at the fovea of the retina. We have stages, so Sternberg, Thurstone, Gardner, Edinburgh. Spearman, Thurstone, Gardner, Sternberg. Stages. Right, yes, stages. Spearman, Thurstone, Gardner, Sternberg. Caffeine will inhibit the enzyme that breaks down CMP and acts on adenosine receptors. Subliminal stimuli are stimuli that don't reach the absolute threshold of sensation. Below the absolute threshold of sensation. Cool. Spearman theory of intelligence, that we have one general intelligence, and this comes from the fact that people who do well in math tests also do well in writing tests. A graph has the ability to write. Anomia is the inability to name things. The steric theory of olfaction, known as shape theory, says that molecules bind to olfactory cells receptors like a lock and a key. Method of loci is like memory palace memorization technique, where you imagine yourself walking through a place and picking out things in the place for things to encode to your memory. Fluid intelligence is how quickly you can think on your feet. Crystallized intelligence is the factual knowledge. Fluid intelligence increases as you grow older. Crystallized intelligence increases as you grow older. 10 and befriend response is the idea that social coping is the best way to deal with stress, and mainly because social coping uses oxytocin. Implicit memory are non-declarative memories, or memories they can't explicitly talk about, and these are usually formed unconsciously. What are the three things to consider when a human is looking at an object? Its color, form, and motion. What is the cause of dizziness and vertigo? When we're walking around and the inner lobes in our semicircular canals don't stop moving when we do. And lobes don't stop moving when we do. Thiamine is important for the body because it converts carbohydrates into glucose, which is needed for energy. The purpose of endolimbs is that they're inside the inner ear, specifically the semicircular canal, and they move around the semicircular canal to give us head positioning and rotation. Neglect syndrome causes a change or loss in the capacity of divided attention. People will ignore objects on the other side of their gaze. Occurs when damage to the brain causes a change or loss in the capacity of divided attention. People will ignore objects on the other side of their gaze. Empty card again. Alertness is awake. Daydreaming and drowsiness are both self-induced. Alertness is an awake. Daydreaming is awake but relaxed state. Self-induced drowsiness is before sleep. Self-induced sleep is not aware. Contextual effect is basically how we perceive certain stimuli based on the context we're giving them. Method of problem solving include algorithms, trial and error, and heuristics. Alertness is, again, awake, fully awake and aware. Daydreaming is an awake but relaxed state, self-induced. Drowsiness is just before falling asleep, self-induced, and sleep is not aware. 0 to 2 years is sensory motor stage. This is where children are learning their world through the five senses, and they're also subject to object permanence, which is seeing objects that aren't there. Stronger nodal links equals decreased processing time. Weak linguistic determinism. Relative says that language sort of determines thought. Language sort of determines thoughts. Knowing a language makes it easier to think a certain way, for example. What is Gestalt's Pragna's law? Brain reduces figure to its simplest object. For example, we see with 5 perfect circles. Each of the following drug route entries: injection, transdermal injection, intramuscular injection. Goes right through the vein, it's the fastest, so injection is the fastest. Transdermal injection goes right through the skin, which is the slowest, but still an injection. Intramuscular injection is a needle struck to the muscle and fast, depending on the liver EpiPens versus vaccines. Goes right through the vein, which is the fastest. Transdermal going through the skin, which is pretty slow. Intramuscular is a lot faster usually. It's where it's stuck through into the muscle and can be fast. For opioids, we can use something called methadone that acts on opioid receptors, but it acts more slowly, so it dampens the high, which reduces cravings. Those with a growth mindset accomplish more in their careers. Sensory adaptation is where, for example, the receptors eventually adapt to the whatever stimulus you're providing it with. So if I'm putting my hand on the table, after 3 seconds, I no longer feel sensation because it stops those neurons stop firing action potentials. TRPV1 receptors are used to sense temperature, and they're also sensitive to pain. Certain odor molecules contain certain vibrational frequency profiles, and that's what makes them specific to odor molecules. Cocktail party effect is the ability to hear out a specific name at a large, loud party, or particularly you can hear someone call your name. This is an endogenous cue because you have to have a built-up meaning of your name in order to understand it, and you're primed to your name, for example. Spotlight model of attention is the unconscious awareness of some things. For example, you're typically primed to your name, so you're unconsciously aware of your name at all times. Produces the aqueous humor, ciliary body. Modified synaptic networks are just unique synaptic networks between different individuals based on experiences and knowledge. Economy principle states that our brain is efficient as hell. Availability heuristic is using any facts or knowledge that come to mind, examples that come to mind to make a decision. For example, in the news, you might have heard that, shark attacks are very present, and that tells you that, shark attacks are common. I don't want to go to the beach. So my sensory homunculus is a map of the brain, and it maps different parts of the body to different parts of the brain. What is whole report technique? Use the example giving subject 3 by 3. So when you show someone a 3x3 number matrix and ask them to report every number they saw, they were called 2 or 3 numbers, but by the time we call the fourth number, the visual image is left their sensory memory. That's whole report technique. Lewis Terman. Lewis Terman was a Stanford psychologist who changed Binet's intelligence test to a general intelligence test for teenagers and adults, and he called it the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Test. What are some medical creation of false memories and pain control? Morphology is the structure of words specifically. What is executive attention? You deciding what you want to pay attention to. The ability of you deciding what you want to pay attention to, driven by acetyl or dopamine, which is secreted from the ventral tegmental area or the VTA. Law of common fate. We tend to group objects that are moving in one direction together. I don't know what this is. The olfactory bulb contains nerve that branches the word. What is located at the end of each connection? These are optical cell receptors. At the end, there are receptors that are sensitive to one specific type of molecule. What's transduction of visual sensory information is just the idea that light gets transformed to other forms of energy. So, for example, when light comes into your eye, it reaches the retina with the rods and cones and gets transferred to electrical energy, or more actually neural signals. Broadbent's early selection theory. Totally forgot this actually. All information in the environment goes into sensory register, then the info gets transferred to selective filter and into perceptual process, into conscious. Sensory registers everything. Selective filter filters out stuff and into your perceptual process. Okay, so Broadbent's early selection. Sensory register, selective filter, perceptual process, and conscious. You have an early selection, selective filter. What is working memory? The thing you're thinking of right now. Alfred Binet's roadway to developing an attention test. Develop a test when they became general. So he first developed a test to establish a child's mental age, which later became a general intelligence test. Capsaicin is found in spicy molecules, which activates TRPV1 receptors. And triggers a pain response. Found spicy food triggers a TRPV1 triggers pain response. Kinesthesia. Being able to be aware of the movement of your body behavior. If I play this key on a piano, I'll be able to play this riff. Being able to be aware of the movement of your body behaviorally. Being able to be, if I hit the keypad on this panel this way, I'll be able to play this riff. What is semantic network memory and episodic memory? Semantic memory has to do with words. In fact, episodic memory is event related, both are part of explicit memory. What is serial position effect? Tendency of a person to recall first item in the middle of the worst. Weber's law, delta I over I equals K. Delta I represents the difference threshold. I represents the initial stimulus intensity in case and whether proportion of the Lassend equation. I is the initial stimulus intensity. I is a difference threshold. List of theory of intelligence stages. Spearman, Thornstone, Gardner, Sternberg. Hierarchical semantic network. Theory that we store information in a hierarchical way. Broad topics are stored at high-level nodes. Theory that we store information in a hierarchical way. Broad topics are stored at higher-level nodes. What are calcium used for in olig? So calcium are found at ends of hair cells, and when we get up, the calcium actually pulls on our hair cells and triggering action potential, telling our brain that we're actually getting up. So use it to detect the motion of us getting up, because the calcium pulls on the hair cells and trigger action potentials. Tip links are molecules that are found at the tip of kinociliums, which are a bundle of hair cells, and they link the kinocilium together. Fixation area. Getting stuck on the wrong approach to a problem. Insight is the aha moment. It becomes when you let a problem incubate or sit over time. Fixation is getting stuck on a wrong approach to a problem. Insight is the aha moment when you have problems incubate overnight. Psychoactive drugs. Drugs alter our consciousness and our perceptions. Shining task experiment. Wearing headphones on two different sounds and each heard in the other ear. Which taste relies on the GPCR on the ion channel? So GPCR, sweet, umami, and bitter cells rely on GPCR. And sour, salty rely on ion channels because they bind to the receptors directly. Sweet, umami, and bitter cells. Taste, not cells. Sweet, umami, and bitter taste rely on GPCR receptors, G protein couple receptors, and sour salt because they bind to receptor directly. What is the cause of dizziness and vertigo? Is when the end lift doesn't stop moving the same time we stop moving. What is thiamine? Thiamine converts carbohydrates into glucose for energy. Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. Rate of forgetting is very fast. Most of forgetting happens in a few days before leveling out. Neglect syndrome is damage to brain tissue which causes issues with divided attention, so you only focus on objects on one side of your gaze. What is REM sleep? REM sleep is the deep sleep stage and consists of alpha, beta, and desynchronous waves. Dreaming increases formation of episodic memories. Composed of alpha, beta, and desynchronous waves, dreaming occurs, memory consolidation, and episodic memory formation. Alpha, beta, desynchronous waves. During the N2 sleep stage, this is characterized by theta waves, and this is characterized with the presence of sleep spindles and K complexes. A person who is highly skilled at a test will require less attention. Difficult tests require more attention. What is retrieval? Pulling something from long-term and short-term memory. Just also law of symmetry. We perceive objects as being symmetrical and forming around a center point. Short and intermediate are used for sleep, while long-acting is used for anxiety. Post-acute withdrawal. Post-acute withdrawal. It's asking what is post-acute withdrawal? Post-acute withdrawal, psychological effects. Second stage withdrawal comprises of the psychological symptoms of withdrawal. Gestalt Pragnazal states that we view objects being as perfect as possible. For example, the Olympic rings, we see them as being 5 perfect circles. Binet defines a mental age based on his tests. How a child at a specific age performs intellectually compared to the average intellectual performance for a child of that specific age. Injection is very fast. It goes through the vein for drug entry. Transdermal is using a patch that goes through the skin. It's the slowest. Intramuscular is going through the muscle. Depending on how fast it is. EpiPens are fastest. Vaccines are a little bit slower. Cued recall. Having clues to remember words. Intermediate level or of difficult. Having clues to remember words. Intermediate level of difficulty for retrieval. Having clues to remember words. What are the remaining routes of drug entry? Intradermal or injections, inhalation, or oral. Transdermal, intramuscular. What are the 3 locations of taste buds? Fungiform, which is the front of the tongue, foliate, which is the side of the tongue, and circumvallate, which is the back of the tongue. Foliate is the side of the tongue, and circumvallate, which is the back of the tongue. What is free recall? Recalling with no cues. Where is dopamine produced? Dopamine is produced in the ventral tegmental area, located in the midbrain. Olfaction is detection of smell. How does Piaget believe we develop schemas? We develop schemas through assimilation and accommodation. What is a psychological difference for problem solving? Going to an end goal. What are well-defined problems? Problems that have a clear start and end goal. Like how do you turn off? How do you turn on the light? What is the role of the hippocampus in the limbic system? The hippocampus is a role for memory, if I remember. Forming new memories converts short-term memory into long-term memory. key in forming new memories, convert short-term memory to long-term memory. What is flashbulb memory? Flashbulb memory. Highly emotional memories that feel extremely vivid, can be positive or negative and susceptible to reconstruction. Highly emotional memories that feel extremely vivid, can be positive or negative and susceptible to reconstruction. What is the whole report technique? So you're giving someone a 3x3 number generator, asking to repeat every single number. They will repeat 2 to 3 numbers, and by the time you get the fourth number, the visual image would have left their visual memory, so they're unable to recall the fourth number. Belief perseverance. Ignorant rationalized discomforting facts. Ignoring dumb facts about Trumps. Overcome is going to test with a lot of influences. Actively seeking out only confirming facts. Only read stories about how wonderful Trump is. Belief perseverance is ignoring dumb facts, basically. Basilar tuning. There are varying hair cells in clothes when you're reading hair cells. Hair cells near the front are active at high frequency. Hair cells in the end are active at low frequency. Hair cells in the front of the cochlea are active at high frequency. Hair cells in the back of the cochlea are active at low frequency. So, olfactory bulb contains nerves that the end of each connection contains a receptor that's specific to one particular molecule. Fovea is part of the retina, contains mostly cones and some rods. Covered only in cones. Whoops. Part of the macula, which make up the retina. 12 plus years is the formal operational stage. Children are able to reason abstract concepts and think of consequences of potential action. Moral reasoning takes place. Reason abstract concepts and think of consequences of potential action. Moral reasoning takes place. Think of consequences and moral reasoning. Formal operational stage. Pupil. The opening in the middle of the iris can get bigger or smaller depending on the iris relaxing or contracting. The iris relaxes, it gets bigger. If it contracts, it gets smaller and modulates the amount of light that enters the eye. Can get bigger or smaller based on the iris contracting or based on the iris relaxing or contracting, respectively. It modulates the amount of light that enters the eyeball. Broadband's early selection theory says that we have sensory register, or signals go to a sensory register, selective filter, perceptual process, and goes into our conscious. Working memory is what you're thinking of right now, and it is what you're thinking of right now, short-term memory. Alfred Bennett's railway, he first developed a test to identify a child's mental age, which later became a general intelligence for adults and teenagers. Capsaicin is a molecule found in spicy food, and it interacts with TRPV1 receptors in the tongue to stimulate pain response. Kinesthesia is the ability to know where your body parts are and control your body parts on a behavioral level. So, for example, hitting a baseball bat at this particular way will allow you to hit the baseball. That's kinesthesia. Semantic memory is words and facts. Episodic memory are events-related things and are all part of explicit memory. Serial position effect is the ability to remember first and last things in a series, but inability to remember things in the middle, or people just suck at remember things in the middle. Weber's law is delta I over I. Delta I is the what was it? Delta I is the initial stimulus intensity and the intensity difference. Intensity difference over initial stimulus intensity equals K. Hierarchical semantic networks. It's just a way our brain groups things into order, higher orders, so broader items are typically at higher nodes. Suspensory ligaments attach to ciliary muscles, and they come together to form this lobe bar. Attach to ciliary muscles, and they form this ciliary body. Lens. Bends light, so it goes back to the eyeball. Focuses light specifically at the fovea and just how much light is spent by you. Focuses light specifically on the fovea of the retina. So bends light back to the eyeball and focuses light specific at the fovea of the retina. Macula. Part of the retina rich in cones with some rods. Fixation error is getting stuck on the same problem because you're on a wrong approach. Insights, the aha moment, typically comes after you let a problem incubate for a while. Psychoactive drugs, drugs that affect your consciousness and perceptions. Shadowing task experiment is giving a person a headphone playing two different sounds in two different earbuds and asking them to repeat the sound they heard in the other ear. GPCR receptors are the bitter, sweet, and umami, and ion channels are sour and salty. Ebbington's forgetting curve states that we tend to forget stuff really quickly on the first 3 days, but then it eventually levels out. REM stage of sleep is deep sleep, characterized by alpha waves, beta waves, and desynchronous waves. And this is where memory consolidation happens, formation of episodic memory, and dreaming occurs. And the eyes move quickly and then while your muscles in your eyes are paralyzed. Eyelids are paralyzed, eyelids are closed. During N2 sleep stage, this is theta waves, contains sleep spindles and K complexes. A person whose skill test will require less attention and more attention. Retrieval is taking things from long-term memory, bringing them to working memory, short-term memory. There's also a lot of symmetry, things that we tend to see objects centering around a focal point and spinning out of the focal point. Benzos, short and intermediate, are used for sleep-inducing. Long-acting is used for anxiety. Post-acute withdrawal is something, it's 2 years after withdrawal period and lasts for 2 years after withdrawal period. And these are the psychological and behavioral effects of withdrawal. How did Binet be defined? Mental age is defined by the child's level of intelligence compared to the general average intelligence of that particular child at that particular age. The average child at that particular age. What is cue to recall? Having a cue to remember things. We have transdermal, or transdermal intramuscular, which make up injection. Then we have oral, then we have inhalation. Taste buds exists at the fungiform, front of the tongue, foliate side of the tongue, and papilla circumvolata, which is the back of the tongue. Free recall is no cues to recall words. Dopamine is produced in the ventral tegmental area, which is located in the midbrain. Olfaction is another word for smell. Palate develops schemas by assimilation and accommodation. What is the psychological definition of problem? So I'm going from start goal to end goal. Well-defined problems are a problem with clear start and end goals, like how you turn on a light in a dark room. Hippocampus is involved in forming new memories. Important for formation of new memories. Flashbulb memories are highly vivid emotional memories, can be positive or negative, and susceptible to reconstruction. Belief perseverance is ignoring disconfirming facts. So, for example, you're ignoring dumb facts about Trump. Basilar tuning is that high-frequency sound always hits hair cells in the front of the cochlea, while low-frequency sounds hit hair cells in the back of the cochlea. Fovea is the part of the macula which is covered only in cones. 12 plus years is the formal operational stage. Children become reason abstract concepts, can reason their consequences, and are just very emotionally equipped. Pupil is a part of the eye that is part of the iris, can dilate or shrink based on the iris relaxing or contracting respectively. And yeah. Suspensory ligaments make up this lower body. Lens will bend light back so it hits a fovea of the retina. Macula is part of the retina, covered in mostly cones and some rods. Yes! Oh my god, it took forever. Alright. That's it.